the world is not in your books and maps, it's out there. And I can resonate with that. Like you can stare at a map, you can stare at someone in social media, and you can stare at Google Maps, but until you actually go out there and see the real thing, then you're missing out on so much.
Welcome to the Evolve Podcast, an open forum on personal growth and cultivating a positive mindset. I'm your host, Joe Fitzpatrick. Today on the show, we have David Nguyen. David Nguyen describes himself as a hobbit-sized human touring North America on a bicycle. David is a wanderer and adventurer who prefers to live the life of a nomad, exploring the world at approximately 10 miles per hour on two wheels. At 40 years old, David has toured on his bike cross-country multiple times, and his adventures are just getting started. One of his goals is to ride through all the national parks in North America. Thanks to the kindness of strangers and the bikepacking community, as well as friends David has made from his journeys, he's found purpose in life through movement and soaking up as much time outside as possible. Even when he's not traveling the country, he still enjoys riding bikes with friends in Richmond and beyond, which is how he and I met, through mutual friends who love to ride bikes. I hope you enjoyed his story. Let's go. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Our guest, David, is currently traveling, and some of his internet access is a little spotty. There are some parts of the episode that are a little distorted. We did our best to edit those out while still preserving the quality of David's story. Let's go. Appreciate your flexibility with all this. I know it's been a process getting you set up.
Yeah.
So where are you at now?
I am in a small town, I think south of Rochester, New York.
Okay.
Yep.
And you're visiting your friend there?
I'm actually staying with a host that I met in Ohio, like Southern Ohio. I was communicating with a park service and try to camp at this park. And he was on the other line, and the park says, no, you can't camp there, but he has family there. So he called his family, was able to give us a place to camp. And then he said, when you get to Rochester, swing by the house. We can finally
cool.
meet. And he hosted me. So I was like, hey, I'm going to be there in a couple of days, be great. And also, can I borrow your computer so I can do a podcast? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So, and we are here. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
really crazy, people's generosity, like he helped us out when he was in New York and we were in Southern Ohio. Yeah, that was pretty spectacular.
Yeah. Well, props to him for making it happen too. That's great that you've been able to get so much support from people while you're out on the road. And just to put it into context for people, you are someone I've met like 2 years ago, I want to say.
Yeah.
And, we met through mutual friends here in Richmond, where you grew up. But now you've been living this sort of nomadic lifestyle on a bicycle for a while. So let's just get into that, starting with who you are, what you do, why you do it, and what your journeys look like so far.
Okay, so my name is David Nguyen. I grew up in Richmond, but then I moved down to Yorktown to work for a nonprofit, the YMCA. I was their program supervisor for about 16 years. I work with various age groups, kids. I run summer camp, different programs, and I work closely, with a lot of military commands in the area. Provide them with volunteer opportunities and things like that. So I'm constantly, out talking to people, doing events, raising money. That's my huge part of my job, is raising money and work with the local school system and things like that. So did that for about 16 years. And then during that, I like to cycle a lot. So I ride my bike as much as possible. And I've always wanted to ride my bike from ocean to ocean. And a lot of people, about 3,000 to 4,000 people do it a year. And I was like, you know what? I need to be one of those guys. And then when the pandemic hit last year, the whole, the Y and a lot of places shut down. So I was like, this is my opportunity. So I handed in my resignation, donated everything I own, and then hopped on my bike, started riding from Richmond, and I haven't stopped since. Well, I came back to visit a couple of times, and then something, inside me said, you need to keep on going. There's so much of, of the States that you haven't seen and experienced. And I still haven't, I've been gone for like, accumulated like 2 years, and I still haven't seen all of it. It's just like literally a tip of the iceberg. And, meeting people and see the sights that, offers in this country. I mean, it is spectacular, so it has been such a great journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And 3,000 to 4,000 people ride their bikes across the country every year.
Absolutely. So
That's incredible.
there is about 23 individual bike routes. Those are privately mapped by ACA. They are the Adventure Cycling Association based in Missoula, Montana. They have maps that they build that you can go, or you can take the US bike routes, which, they're not very safe. They aren't, as updated, because they're a lot older. But yeah, about around that many people ride around the country, crisscrossing in the country. And then there are people that ride their bicycle around the world that you don't hear about. And there's about a couple hundred people do that every year. They'll start out one side of the world and literally ride from continent to continent, and then end up where they started. And it is actually such an incredible journey. And I hopefully in the future, that'll be on my list of things to do.
Right. So you did the ocean to ocean from Richmond to California, correct?
Astoria, Oregon.
Okay. And then you biked back, right?
So I don't know if you remember that great movie from Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump.
Yeah, of course.
He just took off. He went, I just took off for a run, and then he got to one ocean and he said, well, since I'm already here, I might as well just keep on going. So when I got to Astoria, and it was during the pandemic, so it wasn't a lot of riders. I actually only met like 3 other riders. And when I got to Astoria, I kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I should go home. And then I got a couple of phone calls from friends that live down the California coast. And they said, hey, you should ride your bike from where you are down to San Diego. There's friends that live in San Francisco, LA, and San Diego. It's only 1,000 miles. At that point, to like an average person doesn't bike, 1,000 miles a lot. I'm like, that's it, only 1,000 miles. So I took off and went down the California coast and saw some spectacular sights, as you would see, like the Redwoods, Big Sur, and all that, and went all the way to San Diego. And I stayed there for like about a week just to like process everything. And then I got a couple more phone calls, and a couple friends said, hey, we live Texas coast, Louisiana, and Florida. I was like, you know what? I'm already here. When is my next opportunity? So I took the southern tier part from San Diego all the way to St. Augustine.
Wow.
And then just stemmed from that. And then I decided I want to do all the lower 48 states and as many national parks as I can. So I only have like about 8 states left to ride, and more than half of the national parks, because we have 63 national parks in the United States. 63 national parks plus the national monuments is 124, I believe. I could be wrong, but I would double check the numbers. But yeah, and each site is specifically different, the region, and it is amazing. I highly recommend people like go see those sites. I don't tell them like, don't ride a bike, drive like a normal person. It is a lot of miles, and it's not just like you're biking every day, you're actually using all your senses. and
Right.
survival skills. Really, certain areas like you have to survive, like grizzly bear country. You got to know, what you're doing, and how you're camping and things like that. And they have like laws and regulations that you have to know.
Right. And
So
not to
it.
mention dealing with the weather, as
Mhm.
well. There's so much to consider. You have to be completely self-supported to a
Mhm.
certain extent, at least while you're on your
Yeah.
bike. But you've been able to meet so many people on these journeys that you've taken. You mentioned meeting other riders out on the trail that you've formed friendships with, as well as the people who host you. So I want to talk a bit about that,
Okay.
in terms of the people that you've met in this community. Um, so can you talk about like the network of hosts
Okay.
that
Yeah,
keep
definitely.
you up?
Okay, so starting out, I didn't really learn about the network of hosts. It's called Warm Showers. It is basically it's a while back. I'm not sure exactly when it started, but it was a guy. He went to another a person's like, "Hi, I'm riding my bike across country, and is it okay if I use your shower?" And it started like that, And they established a network of cyclists and cycle enthusiasts that you know all connected to a website and that hosts other cyclists, and it is great. At first, it started out as just, cyclists hosting other cyclists, but then, people starting to learn in cities, learn that, oh, people do ride cross country through their city. So why don't they, turn an old building into a bike hostel, or churches will open their doors to host cyclists and fire stations and anything like that. And it stemmed from there. Now it's international. You can literally go anywhere in the world, and if you have the app or the website, they'll pop up. You shoot them a message, and basically, like, the more feedback you have, positive feedback you have, the quicker the response. So I mean, honestly, every cyclist and cycle enthusiast, like, it's like we're the same breed. We can get along with each other real well. Yeah, I mean, you cycle, you understand
Right.
that you meet other cyclists. It's like, oh my gosh, there's another guy just like me. I need to talk to him, become best friends in 5 minutes. And you do become best friends in 5 minutes, So you get to meet incredible people, and you learn about the story of, why they're doing it. And a lot of the stories I get is I always wanted to do this, but, I just don't have that much time. And
Right.
I've had people tell me that, I ask them, like, how come you don't ride cross country yourself? And one lady, like, answered the question that really hit me really hard. She said, well, the reason I didn't do it when I was younger is because I was so busy, you know, and then now I'm just too tired. And that terrifies me. I was
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, like,
Yeah.
a lot of us in the world do live that way. We
Right.
spend our entire lives working and building this wealth, and then just work and work and work. And by the time you get to your retirement age, you're too tired to do anything. You're just so accustomed to working for 40 years, you miss out on so much of the world. And that is one of the things, the reason why I wanted to go out and do this before I get too old, and don't have the energy or, the passion to do it. So that's what I'm afraid is, I'm afraid to lose that passion. So that's why I'm
How
doing it
old, how
now.
old are you now?
So I'm 39. I actually turned 40 this Friday.
Oh, sick. Okay,
Yeah,
sweet.
so I will be celebrating my 40th birthday in Syracuse, I believe, Syracuse, New York. So I will just, go to a restaurant, order a bunch of food, and just stuff my face with, just food. Yeah,
That's awesome, man. What a great way to spend a birthday on, such an awesome trip. Um,
absolutely. I'm very fortunate to be able to do this. Yeah.
do you have friends who are going to be there with you to help you celebrate?
So I I was supposed to have a friend that, supposed to fly out, but, her work schedule changed, because everyone is short staffed right now. So
Right.
she really couldn't leave. So we're gonna just celebrate digitally. I just sent a message. I was like, hey guys, just the typical norm, like video chat somebody, say, hey, happy birthday. And a lot of them just like, I wish I was there with you. And they'll just, everyone will basically just Venmo me money for coffee. I love coffee. So they're just like, here's coffee on me for
Yeah,
the
I saw
next
that on your
2 weeks.
Instagram. You have your Venmo tag up there. If someone wants to buy you coffee or support you, have you
Mhm.
gotten some good support from people by doing that?
Yes. So a friend told me that, you should just put your Venmo on there, just to do it. So I did, but I do ask for support, but not in monetary values. Like sometimes I would need like a spare tire or tubes, things like that.
Yeah,
And when I know places that I'm going to stay, I'll send a message. I'll say, hey, all my friends, like, I'm going to be here. If you want to send me care packages, you're more
right.
than welcome to. And I think like the value of the gift is a lot more in the actual gift. It's like something that I can use. So pretty much my bike, all the new parts has been, basically sponsored by friends, and I know exactly which part is from whom, and and where they mail it out from. So like, so my bike basically is like a tribute to them. I'm riding certain thousand miles on the set of tires that my friend sent me. My new handlebars that I just got is from another friend, and just things like that. That matters to me a lot more than money. Because I can physically touch that every time. Every time I touch my handlebars, oh man, Serena sent that to me, and every time I take a crank on my pedals, I know that my friend Juan sent me the new chain, and my friend Caitlin sent me the tires and the spare
Right.
tubes that I needed today because I had a flat tire right in Rochester. So
Yeah,
just things like that means more to me, so that I basically carry them with me to my journey, on my journey. And honestly, at this point, my journey doesn't really belong to me anymore. It belongs to everyone that follows me on Instagram. It belongs to everyone that gives me a thumbs up, send me a heart, and on a tough day say, hey, go get some coffee on me, and things like that. Like just things like that, like just like keeps you going. There are hard days, and just little gestures like that really, really, really helps. Just get me through tough days.
yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, having a community of support is so helpful, and being out there on your bike. There are some days I know that you do ride with other people, but there are also probably a lot more days than that where you're
Hmm.
riding by yourself. And
Yeah,
I'm sure it can get lonely at times, but having people to cheer you on through social media and follow along with you, um, I'm sure that just goes a long way. Yeah.
absolutely. It does boost morality, and just posting a video, and everyone's like, oh, good job. I mean, even like people like on the trail or on the road, they see me riding and they're just like giving me a thumbs up. That really like gives you that little energy boost, like, oh man, yeah, that guy's cool. He sees me, he sees what I'm doing, and he understands. So it is such little small things like that means a lot.
Definitely.
Like for example, yesterday, it rained all day, and the trail, it's so right now I'm on the Empire State Trail that runs from Buffalo all the way to New York City. It's 750 miles on a bike path. It's crushed limestone, but when it rains, water accumulates, so mud splashing everywhere, and I have a rain jacket on, but still, it's pretty miserable.
Right.
And I stopped by a bridge just to stop so that I can get out of the rain, and I met a couple that's doing the opposite way, and they're from Holland. And we just started talking, and you share information. Oh, you go to the next town coming up, that's a great spot to stop. And I was like, oh yeah, so you go the other way, it's a couple of nice spots, and just be able to just have a conversation.
Hmm.
And when you spoke about the lonely part, it does get lonely, but um, I like riding solo majority of the time. Like, I'm a social person, but I
Hmm.
don't mind being alone. It gives you a lot of time to think and process and reflect on the last day that you were there or the last things that you did. So I can do both. I think someone told me that I am an introvert and an extrovert at the same time. It's like 50-50 right down the middle. I was like, that's kind of hard, but you know what? I'm slowly, warming up to that, that theory.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like you've got a great sense of gratitude too for all the people in your life that do support you, and that you have that awareness of who gave you what and like where they're from, and how that helps you every day, like for maintaining that positive mindset.
Yep. I don't know how many people have the opportunity to do this, and just be able to have that support and doing like one of your ultimate dream is one of those, like, the greatest feeling. Every night I go to bed, I'm thankful for all the people, that kept me going and talk to me saying, hey man, are you alive? I'm like, yeah, I'm alive. So just like that, things like that. So I mean, I'm very, very thankful and for this great opportunity. And it's basically, I'm getting close to the end. I'm heading to Maine and then down the coast back to Virginia, and that's it for now. For now, I don't want to be, like, oh, I'm never going to ride again. Which
Oh yeah,
once you
definitely
get
not.
the bug, I mean, you and I still have to do that century.
I know, man. So I just did another 50 miler last weekend, and it definitely felt a lot better than the one I did last year.
Mm-hmm.
This Virginia heat is no joke, that's for sure. I was drinking a lot more water this time, and I've learned about a few other new stops on the trail. So that's definitely helpful. There's a gas station across the street from Dory Park that
Yeah.
where you get free ice water, and you can also get like Dairy
Dairy
Queen
Queen.
if you want that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite stops. On a hot day,
Good
ice
one.
cream.
Hey guys, brief pause in the episode to tell you about some of the great businesses that support this podcast. First, we got Weight Train. Use code Evolved Podcast to get 10% off all Weight Train and Athleticity gym gear and apparel. No matter what you need for your workouts, they have the gear to help you get it done. And if you don't see something you want, email them at team@weighttrain.com and they will take your requests for new products. Visit Weight Train for all your gym gear needs. Next is True Nutrition. Use code Evolved Podcast to get 5% off all nutrition supplements. I'm personally a fan of their soy isolate vegan protein powder, available in a variety of flavors and strengths, from light to heavy. They also have non-vegan protein powders if that's not your thing. I personally recommend the cinnamon bun and toasted coconut flavors in the heavy strength, and I add them to waffles, oatmeal, protein shakes, and ice cream. They're delicious. Check out their wide range of supplements at affordable prices that are third-party tested and verified for content quality. They are able to provide such great prices because the supplements come direct from the manufacturer without any marketing gimmicks or fancy labels. Visit truenutrition.com to supplement your workouts and your nutrition. Last is Hate Brand Goods. Use code Evolved Podcast to get 15% off all Hate Brand clothing and accessories. Their goat shorts and shirts are the most comfortable clothing I've ever worn, and they have the coolest designs. However, their clothing drops are only available in limited quantities, so get your favorites while you can, and be on the lookout for other drops that you're stoked on. Visit thehate.com, spelled HVIII, for clothing to remind the world that you're not dead yet and you're ready to kick today in the dick. Back to the show. So, what would you say is your why for doing this bike life, this nomad, adventurous life that you've chosen, for the past couple of years?
So, I've always, been very curious about the nomadic life. How you learn in school that, especially, starting out, people did the after we made the Louisiana purchase, people would just get in their wagon and a horse and pull their wagon across into the unknown, and they didn't know what they were doing, but they learned along the way. And it's just that curiosity that I want to learn for myself. Like, just take a chance, go out there, see the world, test yourself, test your perseverance, test your knowledge of what you've learned, and just really throw yourself out there and see how you would survive, and in turn, like, learn something more about yourself. Like, it's, and growing up, I always taught that, you gotta get a job, go to school, get a job, have a big house. You don't want to live in a van down by the river, do you? Well, time has changed. That's the thing.
Yeah,
People are buying vans and converting them and living down by the river, and they're
that's
just super
true. Yeah,
happy.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And then happiness really, it's totally different from, how you grew, like how we grew up, or just, our parents. Happiness to them is, a home with family. Understand that. That's great. I mean, I'm all for that.
Sure.
But I guess happiness has changed in the last 20 years. People find happiness in different ways. They find love in a different way. And the definition of love and happiness has changed way more than, what we understand and what we learn as we're kids.
Yeah,
So, that's why I wanted to experience the world. But instead of in a car or fly over something, you miss out on the best part, is meeting the people. Going 10 miles an hour to a small town, smile, say hello, you make a personal human connection that I guess we've lost because of, social media and things like that, or the internet and things. So now that I've rediscovered, like, hi, I am David, I'm riding my bicycle across the country, everyone's reaction was like, wow, that's amazing,
yeah,
let's have a conversation.
yeah,
So that's how it starts, like, just a genuine human connection like that is just really rare these days. And that's, like, by far one of my favorite parts.
yeah, definitely. The perception of what is a happy, successful life has changed a lot over the
Hmm.
years, in terms of how it's represented to people in the media. And thankfully, we've embraced alternative lifestyles that are different than, the big house, white picket fence on Main Street with, two kids and a dog, or, whatever. Um, and I think that, people seeing, um, people of diverse backgrounds, um, exploring different lifestyles, um, has opened up the public's consciousness to, other possibilities that, um,
Absolutely.
they hadn't considered before. And, I think the rise of social media, um, giving us, glimpses into other people's lives, um, definitely made that transition, um, much more, transparent, and,
Hmm.
um, it gave rise to the social media influencers and whatnot. But
Yep.
it also, presented, different ways of living, and, different personalities that challenged, you know, people's sense of what is normal, right? And,
Hmm.
um, while we have, suffered some losses in terms of how we communicate with each other, um, it has, you know, given more, um, sense of value to, those in-person interactions. Um,
Absolutely. Yep.
and I think that, we are still, we're trying to find that balance, right? Of, um, having the online communication, which is so important to our lives, and it's made things so much easier, such as this podcast, that we're even able to have this conversation right now, and connect with people across the country, around the world, um, but also not, you know, getting lost to the point where, we can't communicate with people in our everyday lives who we, can see face to face. Um, so I know that's definitely something that, it's important to be mindful of. And, it is great that you are able to have those in-person relationships. And I know, through technology, whether that's like social media or video chat or whatever, you can continue to build those relationships with the people that you met on your journey. And also just share the beautiful places you're seeing, and all these new experiences you're having on your trip.
Absolutely. And I try to take a lot of photos also, but
Yeah.
honestly, like the photos does not do these places justice,
Right.
and the scope is so small.
Right.
You take it from a camera lens when you're there, the experience, the emotion, all your senses are firing at optimal, strength, and you're just trying to take everything and process everything. It's mind blowing. So the last spectacular thing I just saw recently was going to Niagara Falls. You read about it on TV, you've seen videos, but when you're there, it's totally mind blowing that that exists, and it is amazing. And a lot of places I go, it has sites like that, and it's not just the a national park or a national monument. You can go to a small town and they have something, regionally, and it's just as good, and it's just is how you are able to see the beauty within that setting, and people see it different. People see, oh, look, that's a tree with a bunch of stuff on it. I see, look at that piece of art. Honestly, everything's a piece of art. You like throw some paint on there. Is that, oh, hey girl, I haven't seen her.
Hello again.
Yes. Yeah, so like anything like that, so I mean, you get to see really strange things, and sometimes some of the things you see is like you really question, like, why was that created, and honestly, I can go on for like days on like the crazy weird things I've seen, so I mean, that'll just be another like podcast of its own.
So in regards to your biking, like what is the average distance you're doing each day? Like how do you choose to break that up? Um do you have like a set amount that you try and stick to, or do you mix it up?
It really depends on the terrain that you're in, the area that I'm in. So I want to get at least 50 miles a day, because a lot of towns, how they're built back in like the 1800s, they're typically 50 miles apart.
Right.
So one town is 50 miles, because that's like what an average, horse and buggy can do in one day is 50 miles. So it really based upon like how far I want to go that day, the terrain, where I'm staying, and things like that. I know that for example, Kansas is pretty flat. Um, there's not a lot of curves in the road. It's just farm blocks. So you
Right.
go straight and you turn right or you turn left, and there's no trees. I think their state tree is like a telephone pole. That's what I heard. Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, so you really plan out like, and really it's like, how much do you want to suffer that day?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
and I wouldn't say suffer is how much you just want to really push yourself. And there
Sure.
are days where I try to push myself a little further, or the food options. If there's a really, really nice, like, place that sells vegetables, I'm there, because, being on the road, a lot of small towns don't have grocery stores, but they all have Dollar Generals, and you really can't buy fruits and vegetables in most Dollar Generals, but some of them have, fruit options, because in a lot of small towns, that's all they have,
Right.
so yeah, it's really depending on like if it's something, beautiful that I need to get there. Um, I know that in Utah, everything closes on Sunday, so you have to just get there before it closes, and stuff like that. So, it varies, from day to day and from region to region and city to city. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, what's your morning routine look like each day? Like, what time are you usually trying to wake up when you're out on the road?
Okay, so every morning, like I try to get to bed around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at the latest. And being on the road so long, that I basically have developed this internal clock that the second the sun rises, my brain just pop up, say, hey, David, you need to wake up, So I set my alarm for 7 o'clock, but I usually get up at 6:30 to turn my alarm off. That doesn't go off. And then once I get up, I get out of if I'm in a tent, I will break down the tent, pack everything up nice and neat so it fits in the bag, and then make breakfast. Breakfast can be pretty much anything, the night before that I picked up from the store or something I already have, but typically just high protein peanut butter and tortillas, easiest to pack tortillas you can get anywhere, and a jar of peanut butter and honey. I start with that and a cup of coffee. I have a little cooker that, I as much as I can, have a cup of coffee every morning that just really, boosts your day.
Yeah, definitely.
And I recently discovered there's this like coffee. It's called Death Wish coffee.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little instant pack. It's 300 milligrams of caffeine. That's for some of us that don't drink coffee, that's 5 espresso shots all at once.
Yeah, I've never had it before, but I've heard it's really strong.
I don't recommend you taking that if you want to go to sleep the next day, because it kept me up like the entire day. I couldn't go to sleep. I highly recommend to do like a quarter of it or just share it with your friends. Don't do it by yourself.
You remember how many miles you did that day?
I did like 80 miles in like 6 hours.
Damn. Okay.
Typically, average, like I want to do like 10 miles per hour, just be leisure. I mean, I'll ride, pretty constant pace, but that day I was like, go, 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 go.
Yeah. That
get out of my way. Yeah. It's like one of those things, like, and the road has a really nice shoulders too. And I was like, get out of my way. I'm not stopping. And I just went. And then, I got to my destination. I was so tired. I set up my tent in like 3 minutes, ate, and then hopped in my tent and just stayed there and stare at the ceiling for a while. And then I finally regret, taking the whole packet. Now I just do like half of the packet and save the other half for the next day. Yeah. So caffeine will do crazy things to you. So luckily I didn't like hallucinate or anything.
So cycling has definitely been on the rise the last few years, with the pandemic and gyms closing and, people wanting to be outside more. People have taken up riding bikes more frequently. And, we've also seen reports of aggressive drivers and cycling deaths. So I was wondering if you have encountered any aggressive drivers on your trip, and how that's been dealt with.
There's been a few instances where, out of 10 people, you have that one person that's always in a rush to get somewhere because they're always late, and I've encountered a few, but majority, everyone is very nice. They see a cyclist, a lot of the states have that 3 feet law, is state law that, when possible, you give a cyclist 3 feet when you pass. And it's been pretty great. Everyone's like terrified of semis. They're the most decent drivers. They'll actually slow down because they know how long it takes for them to stop. And then they can't really swerve out the way. So they just like, you know what, I'm just gonna ride behind him slowly or give me the entire lane. And I mean, there are some dicey areas that, you really have to make a conscious choice of, should I take that risk or should I not? And when you're on your bike, you really have to take control of the lane. For instance, if you're going down a 2-lane road and there's a car coming the opposite way and a car behind you, and there's no shoulder, I tend to take the lane that tells them, hey man, if you want to pass me, you have to wait till that car, go past first. That give me that buffer, because I've noticed that when there's 2-way traffic like that and cyclists will just ride on the white line, that just give the guy behind you an idea that, you know what, I might be able to squeeze past through.
Yeah.
That just creates that risk, so I just take the lane. You know what, so what if they're mad at me and honking at me? I'm actually doing them a favor and doing myself a favor by staying alive and doing them the favor by not killing someone that day,
Preferably,
and
yeah.
you're in a car, you can speed up and make that 5 seconds up real easy,
Yeah.
rather than sending me to the hospital. So, and really just, make a very conscious decision on how you ride. And the best thing is like learn the law of the road. We cyclists have rights just as much as cars. There's certain areas where we can't go on, which is our interstate. Interstates are the only places that we cannot ride our bike. But in certain states, interstates are the only thing that has that connection in between those two towns.
Hmm.
So a lot of the public transit will allow cyclists to get on the interstate in certain sections because that's the only way to do it. And people are pretty aware. Like cycling has exploded, and cities are connecting bike paths. Towns are just adding more bike lanes to promote exercise. Like I think it's one of those things where you don't need a special skill to ride a bike. Like you ride a bike when you're a kid, it's muscle memory. You hop on, you just go, and it's great exercise. It gives everyone opportunity to, go out, get some fresh air. It doesn't matter what size you are, what shape you are. You get on a bike, and you can just go and enjoy your day, and get from A to B. I've been to a lot of cities where bikes are like the way to travel because by car is really, really hectic and hard.
Hmm. Yeah, I know, especially in foreign countries like India, for example, where it can be really congested. Some people prefer to ride by moped or bicycle, just because it's easier to get around. Like even in like New York City,
Hmm.
it's there's so many cars, and um, people who choose to ride bikes, can get around a little easier. Of course, you
Yeah.
also have to deal with the aggressive drivers there. And I definitely think in like more heavily populated cities, the drivers tend to be a bit more aggressive than, outside of the city. Has that been your experience as well?
So that was my first, thought. I've been to New York City many, many times, and
Yeah.
yellow cabs, they're ginormous moving yellow torpedoes are going left
Yeah.
and right. To my surprise, all the major cities around America, excluding like, California, excluding like LA and things like that, it is safer to ride in the city than it is to ride in the suburbs.
Really?
Like for example, Madison, Wisconsin, Chicago, to my surprise, it is very bike friendly. um,
Well,
Everyone
yeah,
in the city
so
rides.
like if the city infrastructure has built it up so that it is more bike friendly, then it
Mhm.
would be safer. But I know not every city, has like bike friendliness as a priority for like the
Right.
planning.
Yeah, and a lot of cities are starting to get on board. A lot of groups
Yeah,
are advocating, bike lanes and things like that. I mean, Richmond has gone a long way, and
for sure.
and I still remember when, I don't even go downtown. You don't go downtown Richmond. Now it's like it's a huge boom. People are healthier, and the country is moving toward, the bike infrastructure because, not everyone wants to drive, not everyone can drive, but everyone can ride a bike and be able to provide a safe road. And, just so that it teaches new drivers, that, what, there's an alternative way of getting around rather than just driving the car. And I know that a lot of cities, they specifically design bike lanes so that it's more efficient. For example, Madison, Wisconsin, they get a lot of snow, and I learned that they will plow the bike lanes, the bike paths before they plow the city roads
Wow.
because, cities are doing that. Like New York is actually really great with bike paths too, and honestly, every state I've gone through, and all the big cities are really good. But I have never ridden in New York City, so I'll let you know if I survive New York City or not. But
Yeah, I
like,
hope
if
so,
you, yeah,
man. Yeah, and hopefully that trend continues. Richmond definitely has come a long way, and I know there are groups within the city trying to make the city more accessible by bike, as well as to pedestrians.
Yep,
It is
absolutely.
important. Um, Outside of biking, do you do any other types of movement like yoga or stretching to help you with
So,
your care?
yep, every day. I try to, as much as I can in the morning. I would stretch out, loosen the joints. You understand that, when you get
Yeah,
older, those joints, man, you got to stretch them out.
yeah,
And, especially riding, I try to stretch out as much as possible. I carry a little not a tennis ball, but a little golf ball, and I roll them on my joint, like in my quads. My quads are, it gets the most work. So I roll them out in my hams and my calves. So I stretch out as much as I can, drink a lot of fluids. And surprisingly, people think that when you're riding, you only stretch out your legs, but you really have to stretch out your arms and shoulders too, because you're
yeah.
sitting at a stationary position and it does get stiff. So yeah, constantly move, stretch, and it's a full body workout really.
Oh yeah.
But like, yeah, but mostly, and there are times where I have to physically carry my bike up a flight of stairs or push up a mountain. So having a full range is great. Stretching out, once in a while I will do a push up because you really need your upper body to, to like lift that bike up. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's one of those
absolutely.
things where it's a full body workout, your core, and it really does work everything. I recommend to people that ride, it's not all legs, it's your full body, and it's very important to stretch
Yeah, not
out
to mention that, like,
to
it's
do
not
that.
just your bike, it's all of your gear that you're carrying with you as
Hmm.
well, you know? Do you know
Yep.
approximately like how much your bike weighs with everything on it on average?
Okay. Fully loaded with water and food, it's about 90 pounds. Honestly, I don't feel the weight, but like when someone else like pick up, they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so heavy." I didn't notice at all. It's just a bike to me. And the odd thing is, when I take all my bags off, then I have like issues with turning too fast because with a little bike, you turn a lot slower, it's a lot to carry. Take a turn, pull the handle too hard, and just crash.
Do you have any habits that you practice that help you to stay productive, remember new ideas, or add value to your life? And if so, what are they?
I'm in the habit of journaling about the good and bad, because a lot of times you need the good and also you need the bad to remind you that don't do that again. So it's a balance of both. I mean, honestly, every decision you make while you're traveling like on a bike, if you may take a wrong step, it could be the end of your life. So really think through, like, is it worth it? And honestly, it's okay to ask for help. And I had to learn to ask for help. So habits wise, I try to plan out and just take everything like, one step at a time, think it through, don't make rash decisions, and kind of like take notes on what had happened today, and just be as genuine as possible, and basically just let everything play out on its own. Sometimes, you can try to control the world, but you really can't control the world. The only world you can control is your own. I guess just enjoy every moment that you have, wherever what you're doing. And I guess the best habit I've learned is to just slow down, think it through before you do it, because it might affect you, it might affect someone else. But just enjoy the moment that you're in.
Absolutely, man. So we're going to move towards wrapping up, starting with our mindset moment. What is a quote or tip that you use that inspires you to keep going despite personal hardships?
One of my favorite quotes, I have a couple really, but the one that I use a lot and think about a lot is, it's written by J.R. Tolkien, when Gandalf was talking to Bilbo, and he said, "The world is not in your books and maps; it's out there." And I can resonate with that. Like, you can stare at a map, you can stare at someone on social media, and you can stare at Google Maps, but until you actually go out there and the real thing, and you're missing out on so much.
Yeah, I love that application to social media. It is so practical, and puts it in modern terms, right? Like, you don't live your
Yeah,
life online, you live it out in the world where you know physical things happen, and you can have real experiences. It relates back to what we were talking about earlier about having real conversations with people in person, and building those in-person connections rather than just building the online connections, where they both have value, but it begs the question, like, is that really living if you're not really doing it
right.
out in the world? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And next is our PMA Warrior of the Week. Who is someone who inspires you to keep a positive mental attitude?
This person has passed many years ago, and I learned about this person from a book. It's called Into the Wild by John Krakauer, and
Yeah.
it tells a story about Christopher McCandless, which he's from Northern Virginia, and the story how he, saw society for the way it was and didn't like it. And honestly, he was ahead of his time. He saw what was going on that we did not see. He decided to give it all up and wanted just a simpler life. Like gave away his money, like tore up everything and head to Alaska. And one of the quotes that he said that he learned from someone was, sometimes it's not necessary to be strong, but to feel strong. And
Right.
that totally, connected me real well. You don't necessarily, you know, have to be the strongest person in the world, but there are some situations or everyday life that you just feel it. Have that strong feeling that believe in yourself. You feel it and you know it. You're gonna do it. So that's one of my favorite. Is Christopher McCandless. Oh, also known as Alex Supertramp. That's
Right. Yeah.
his travel name. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was required to read that book before my freshman year of college. It was something that they required of all incoming freshmen at my school, Christopher
Hmm.
University. And, that was my first introduction to that story. And then the movie came out a couple years later, with I think, yeah, Sean Penn directed it, and Emil Hirsch,
Hmm.
Christopher McCandless. Still one of my favorite movies. And I think having read the book prior to that, also like Christopher McCandless's parents came to our school and like gave a presentation with like some photos that Chris took on his trip that they found. Um, and yeah, it's just an incredible story. Um, and definitely someone we can all aspire to be more like, in certain regards, being more of a free thinker and adventurer, and not being so materialistic, and having that strong mindset was really crucial as well. And you know I I completely agree with you on that one. Um, Lastly is good food, good mood. What's one of your go-to meals that helps you feel your best?
Just real ramen, from a ramen shop. It was really hard to find them, when I'm on the road. So I try to like make my own, with a tiny little cook pot, and it's just something about a warm hot bowl of ramen that just, growing up, when you're sick, kind of like a chicken soup. When you're sick, your mom will make chicken soup. You feel better afterwards. And ramen is like that effect for me, just a nice hot bowl ramen, and you sit there and you just enjoy it.
Do you add anything to your ramen when you make it
Yes,
yourself?
I do. I always carry garlic with me, cloves of garlic, a little extra salt, because we do lose a lot of salt when you're riding, so extra salt is fine. Whenever I can, add vegetables. Honestly, I would just throw it all kinds of vegetables in there, broccoli and kale and whatever I can pretty much find or buy at the store. And yeah, just really enjoy a nice bowl of ramen.
Awesome. Yeah. I love pho as well. We've gotten pho together
Yeah,
before. And
yeah,
yeah, ramen is great as well. It's hard to get it vegan sometimes, but if you can find it, it's a good
yeah.
meal for sure.
The last time we had pho together was exactly on my birthday last year. And
That's right.
we rode around the city, had pho, rode around the city some more. So I still remember that. It was really nice. And when I get back, we'll definitely do that. We'll do a slate celebration.
For sure, man. Yeah. So, where can people connect with you if they want to follow along with you on your journey?
Instagram handle is I.R.David.
And it's the
Yeah.
same on TikTok, right?
Yep. Same exact one. I don't post a lot on TikTok. It's just mainly Instagram. And then that automatically transferred to Facebook, so I only have to do it once. And I don't do it a lot, but sometimes when I have time when I'm not riding, I'll post updates and things like that. But I do take a lot of pictures. It just goes into the cloud really. And honestly, sometimes I don't even share the photos on Instagram because I really don't do it justice. So I tell people, like, the most clicheest thing that I can tell people is, you go out there, see the world and see for yourself. I recommend doing it and find, like, you don't really have to ride a bike across the country. Find a way that you're comfortable with, but go out there, see the world. It's an amazing world, and it's not as scary as the media portray it to be. People are still nice, giving, and they want to help you as long as all you have to do is ask. And then when you need help.
Great words of advice, man. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being on the podcast. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again, whenever that will be.
Yeah, absolutely. So I should be back probably mid-November to beginning of December, depending on how amazing Maine is, which I've heard. Like, I've been to Maine, but the part I'm going to, I've never been before. So I'm super excited. I post more pictures and videos, things like that, as I go. So if people want to follow me, or have any questions about bike touring, I'm more than happy to answer questions, day or night. If they want a video chat or anything like that, and if they want, like, to go on an adventure of their own and they don't know how to do it, I will be more than happy to give you a head start, give you the right information. Unlike those some people on YouTube where they embellish a lot of things, I will tell you the flat out, like, it's an adventure no matter what you're doing.
Heck yeah. Thanks again, man. Take care.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out our podcast. I hope you got a lot out of it and it was helpful for you in your personal growth journey. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, please do so on your preferred podcast provider. We're available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Stay blessed and keep the PMA. Later.